What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video. In today's video, I'm going to be building the ultimate white 4K gaming PC build. A system packed with components that not only look amazing, but provide great performance in the latest AAA titles too, and we're hopefully going to have a bit of fun along the way. As always, I'm going to start by walking you guys through all the parts I chose and why, including some alternative choices to consider. I'm going to build the system from start to finish to see what goes right and maybe a little bit wrong, and then look at all those gaming benchmark numbers a little bit later on this exact system. So without any further ado, let's dive into it. The Gigabyte AORUS Master 16 is here with a 240Hz 2560 by 1600 display, up to an RTX 5090 laptop GPU with a staggering 24 gigs of VRAM and Max-Q technology. The choice of CPU spans up to a Core Ultra 9 275HX2 with a turbo of up to 5.4 GHz and 24 cores for maximum power. What's more, there's also up to 64 gigs of RAM and room for a Gen 5 NVMe drive for the ultimate in storage speeds. Learn more at the first links in the description below. I'm going to start off the build today by talking about the CPU, because when it comes to a high-end gaming PC, there really can only be one choice. Now, if gaming's all you're after, the Ryzen 7 9800X 3D is by far and away the best bet. It gives you 8 cores, 16 threads, epic single-thread performance, and has AMD's 3D stacked V-cache, which basically unlocks the biggest bottleneck in modern gaming CPUs, L3 cache. Now, you can get this for an increasingly competitive price point. The days of its $499 pound MSRP are behind us, and this represents fantastic value for money. Intel have tried to respond by dropping the price of their Core Ultra 7 down by an enormous margin, but if you look at the graphs, we've tested all the latest CPUs, the Ryzen 7 9800X 3D always comes out on top. And if it doesn't, it only ever loses out to the 9950X 3D, which is the more expensive, higher core count variant. For gaming though, this is all you're gonna need. Now, when it comes to motherboards, you've got a few options. Now, with Ryzen, you don't necessarily have to shop for the most expensive chipset to get great gaming performance. Now, this is an X870 board. It's not X870E, which is the extreme variant, but unlike last time around, you still get PCI Gen 5, great overclocking, USB 4, all that good stuff. And it actually offers up a great aesthetic for not much more than you'll pay for some of the cheaper B850 boards. Now, you could go B850 in this build if you wanted to. I personally think this design is slightly higher end and is going to match the aesthetic of the system today a little bit better. Now, you can see this thing is a bit of a unit. The silver and white aesthetic on here is just absolutely gorgeous. The only thing I'm not a huge fan of are the RAM DIMMs, which are black, but we are going to be populating these, so hopefully you shouldn't see them too much once the build is put together. I also love that ASUS have gone for a grey and white PCB on the back. I think that's a really nice design element, and I do think that the STRIX lineup just provides an aesthetic kind of design language that's a bit more interesting than some of the other whiteboards on the market. I/O is also solid with plenty of high-speed USB Type A's and Type C's, optical audio, and Wi-Fi 7 for good measure. In terms of cooling, I've picked up the Sudokoo SK700V, and a big shout out to Sudokoo for actually sending this over for today's video, and it fits perfectly with the kind of aesthetic and theme I've gone for. They are a newer brand, but they seem to be popping up with a wide range of designs that look to offer up impressive performance. Now, this is a pretty standard single tower air cooler, but it's extra thick, and you've got some additional heat pipes. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 heat pipes in total, which will run through the heatsink, down to your copper cold plate at the bottom, and then up through the other side. In terms of fans, you've got a single 120mm fan, and then on top of the cooler, we have a display, which is going to show key system metrics. That just connects up via a standard USB 2 header, so it's really, really easy, and Sudokoo have got some software to control this. In terms of RAM and SSD, I've stuck with the theme of going a bit more out there. I've tried to tie in the motherboard, the cooler, the RAM as best I can, and that's where this comes in, the G.Skill Trident Z5 Neo RGB. I kind of wish it was all white, but I think the black might tie in to some of the elements on the cooler top plate and to the RAM DIMMs, so that was my thinking. The thing I like about this G.Skill stuff as well is the top RGB heat spreader design. It's really cool how you've got this kind of flowy switch on the bottom and the top with the G.Skill logo. The RGB will sync up with either Signal, which we can use for the motherboard, or with ASUS's own proprietary software, which I'm not the biggest fan of, to be honest with you. This is a 32 gig kit, CL30, and it's 32 gigs, which is perfect. I'll link this memory and everything else down below for latest pricing and availability too. For storage, I've gone a bit overkill. I've got the 4TB, but I think you're probably better with the 2TB unless you really need the extra fast storage. And I've gone for this, the Samsung 9100 Pro. Gen 5 NVMe's are coming down in price and quite rapidly at this point. As such, this is a great option. Just shy of 15,000 megabytes a second on the read speed, which is amazing, 14,800, and it's going to be a great fit for the system today. In terms of graphics card, let's talk about this, the AORUS RTX 5080. Now, I originally was going to use the Aero for this build, which is another Gigabyte card, but I looked at some of the parts, the cooler's quite boxy, the CPU's quite angular, and I thought the Aero might not actually be the right card for the theme today. I'm super aware that in the current graphics card market, especially for a lot of my viewers in North America, you basically have to just go for whatever you can find at a good price. Here in the UK, things are actually kind of fine. We're seeing MSRPs for basically the whole 50 series at this point. Now, if I open it up, I've used it, I think, in one build on the channel before. I'll link that video in the card section now. And this thing is a bit of a monster. I mean, look at that. So you've got 3 large fans on here, which look great. These have got the little RGB like ring on the end, so you will get the ring effect on the fans. It looks flickery on camera, but it's actually quite cool in real life. And then on the top of the card here, you've got the standard heatsink with all of your AORUS branding, GeForce RTX, and a little display which you can customize. Back of the card actually is great, and you can see I've kind of tried to match the theme of the build. So that's the idea with today's system, really. Obviously, if you want maximum performance, step up to the 5090. Personally, I just don't think it's worth it. I don't think you need the performance, but obviously if you really want the best of the best, that's what you're going to be going for. In terms of the case, I've gone for the Montech HSO2 Pro in today's build. I used this case a little while back. They do 2 versions, the HSO1, which is mesh at the front, and the HSO2, which is glass. I think the HSO2 looks better, and it's curved, as you'll see in a few moments. In terms of fans as well, we get 3 at the bottom, 2 at the rear as standard. I'm going to add some extra fans in at the top just to complete things. And the power supply mounts here on the side. It's a little bit unusual, but it gives us a slightly more panoramic view at the back of the case. And it's nice to do something a little bit different. In terms of the power supply, it's down here on the floor. I think this is going to be sufficient. It's an 850 watt unit and it's platinum. So for the 5080, I think we're going to be fine. Now, this comes in from AORUS, believe it or not, and it's the Elite 850 watt platinum. The reason I picked this is because the Corsair unit I was going to use is only 750. That's definitely not going to be enough. And this is one of the only other white power supplies we've seen that actually has, wait for it, fully white cables. Amazing. Now that's going to mean that we don't need to pick up any extensions. Some of you will prefer extensions. I think these are going to look absolutely fine. We'll assess it later. We can always swap and change, but I think for the build today, these are going to be perfect. Of course, this power supply as well, being one of the latest units out there, is ATX 3.0 and PCI Gen 5, so that's going to work well. Any 850 watt white power supply with white cables and a good 80 plus or cybernetics certification is going to be okay. Power supply is really not that complicated. You've just got to make sure you get the wattage right and go for one from a reputable brand. And you can see pretty standard, not too big as far as size is concerned. And oh, that's clever. This magnet's off. So you can have AORUS branding, or you can, I guess maybe if you've got the power supply the other way around, you can have AORUS branding too. Feels like all of my builds nowadays, all I do is install Ryzen CPUs. Did a Core Ultra build recently and was like pleasantly surprised, but I think Intel have kind of killed it off by not confirming that the next lineup of CPUs is going to use the same socket. Whereas obviously AMD, we're on generation 2 now of the same socket, and we're expecting at least another set of CPUs on these same motherboards. RAM, I'm going to be using the 2nd and 4th RAM DIMM slots in today's build, so it's going to push the notches back on both of these and then slide this memory in. The only thing I've just thought about with the memory is whether the cooler's going to be maybe too tall. That might be a problem. We may need to swap the memory out for low profile. Oh no, it fits, look at that. That is actually perfect. The Samsung 9100 Pro is Gen 5, so I'm definitely going to be using this tallest Gen 5 slot. So just pull that up. Then we're going to slide the drive in, push it down, and then pop the cover back on. Easy peasy. I'm next going to find my screwdriver and just remove this stock AMD mounting hardware, as that is no doubt going to be in the way when it comes to installing our Sudokoo SK700V. Okay, this is interesting. I've just opened the manual for the cooler, and it's one of the first coolers I've ever seen to only support AMD. Isn't it funny what we were just talking about? Now, I've also realized it's a little bit like Arctic in the way that it installs, and this is very clever. So what it does is it gives you this aluminium contact plate here with what looks to be an offset to choose from. What that means is that we're not actually going to use the CPU socket. That's right, the socket is going to come off completely. Now, what they're doing here is they're actually basically allowing the CPU to have perfect contact with this plate and make the best possible contact with the cooler itself to improve performance. So go ahead and remove the socket. It's 4 screws, 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom, and then add this plate on in its place. It is a bit of a scary thing to do this, so just always do be careful when you put one of these on. Obviously, what you don't want to do when you're removing the CPU socket is bend any of the pins on the socket itself. Now, it looks like there's 8 screws to fasten in. I'm going to do the outer 4 first. And it has to be said, it makes me nervy, but it is quite satisfying. Next step is take the fan off the cooler. So apparently that just slides off. That was very easy. Now then, thermal paste, we need to grab the included tube. And what I'm going to do is just add sort of a large grain of rice size onto the top of the CPU. And you can see that's just going to secure onto those posts. Now, you might be thinking, James, my screwdriver isn't going to fit down that hole, but they give you one. Which is kind of cool. And that is just going to screw in nice and easily. And then all we need to do is just slide the fan back in like so. 2 wires to actually run. I'm going to put the CPU fan into the top now, and then the USB will of course plug in a bit later. So I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to lay the case down flat to install the motherboard. And from building in Montech's HS02 before, there are a few things I remember that you should definitely keep in mind. Now, first things first, panels off. The second thing is that some of this bracketry does need to be removed. I'm pretty sure it's this piece down here at the bottom. So from the rear, there should be, yes there is, 2 screws, and these just need to loosen and then be removed. In theory, once that's done, that should pop off. And what I'm going to do this time, to avoid a repeat of what happened the last time I built in this case, roll the clip. I need to get these. Oh, I'm going to lay the case down flat. I'm learning from my mistakes, guys, slowly but surely. And as you can see there, that's where our motherboard tray is going to live. This is where our power supply is going to go. And up here are the extra fans I'm going to install a bit later too. Oh, that was nearly bad. Don't lift the board up by the cooler like you might normally because it moves. Then, oh, nearly did it again. Is it going in? It's going in. Lovely stuff. Particularly when you've got an air cooler, you can't be too careful. Just with the weight and stuff, the board will fall out if you give it the option. I'm then going to go ahead and use my silver screws to secure the board down. We've got 3 standoffs at the top, if I can get that better aligned, 3 along the middle, and a further 3 down the bottom. Right, so we are good. The cooler's in. Now, I did check the compatibility. I want to just check it again, because that looks really tight. The build could be over here, guys, before we've even started. Oh, it fits. So let's take the panel back off. The glass front panel nearly popped itself off too, so I'm going to get rid of that for now. Do not want to break that. Fun fact, I once ran over one of these with my car because Montech said that it was strong enough to hold the weight of a car. Didn't go very well. Roll the clip. It goes nothing. Oh, man, my actual tyre, this is not good. Don't run over your computer case with a car. Right, I think the next step is to do the power supply, some cables, and some wiring. Now, I'll be honest with you, today's build guide is not intended to be a big cables and wiring guide. We've got one of those. We worked very hard on it, and you can check it out if you wish in the card section now. So I think, give me a moment, I'm going to deal with all of that, and then I'll be back with you. That's getting there. There's a couple more things left to do. So all the cabling's done. We've got 3 more fans I want to pop at the top. I'll do that afterwards. First, I'm going to do the GPU. Now, this thing is a unit, and I'm hoping not only it fits, but it matches the build well. And yes, I've got to say, I think that works quite well. Now, with this card being a triple slot GPU, there are 3 covers to remove, and my normal LTT screwdriver doesn't fit. So instead, I need to use this longer, thinner design. You don't get a screwdriver included, so just be aware if you're building with this case, you may need to pick up a slightly smaller, non-standard screwdriver. So take that one out. And then the next one, like so. Lovely stuff. And then the graphics card is going to slide in. And it should be a pretty simple... hang on. I unscrewed the PCI lanes, didn't actually take them out. So I'm going to take those out for good. Slide the GPU in. There we are. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. We're good. I think we're in. These same screws I removed a moment ago are then going to fasten the card back. So get your screwdriver in, get the card card nicely lined up. There we have it, that's better. And with a little bit of magic, that looks amazing. And it fits really, really perfectly within this gap. It makes a tiny, tiny bit of contact here, but it's nothing that's going to be problematic. And then just got to run the GPU cable in, which I think we can do maybe through the side. Yep, are we in? I think we're in. And that is going to plug up on there. So give me a few moments. I'm going to get this thing properly working at the screen, on the graphics card and the CPU cooler moving, the RGB lit up, and I'll join you in a moment for the performance numbers. But first, it's time for the signature GeekaWhat montage. Moving through into performance, and how does this absolutely gorgeous gaming PC actually perform? Well, of course, we've tested it in a range of the most popular titles, and perhaps in no surprise, pretty much all at 4K for good measure. The 5080 and 9800X 3D, pretty much the most powerful combo on the market, and that shows in this benchmark summary. You can see here everything from Apex Legends to Call of Duty's Black Ops 6, and even Doom the Dark Ages clocking in some really strong frame rates at 4K, most of these into the triple digits. Now, taking a closer look at some of the results that we gathered in a bit more detail, and let's start off with Doom, because it was actually the worst result of any that we looked at today. At 4K high, Doom the Dark Ages at rasterization pulled in just 58 frames per second. That's at that top end resolution. Tuning down to 1440p does push this frame rate up to 92 FPS, which is a little more respectable, and outlines how difficult of a game this is to run. Hogwarts Legacy, which is also widely regarded as an intensive AAA title at 4K high, does fare a bit better with over 112 FPS on average from this system, while even Indiana Jones and the Great Circle at 4K high still surpasses that 90 FPS marker. In more competitive titles like Marvel's Rivals, once again at that 4K high preset, frame rates were once again very good with over 100 FPS on average. The visuals at 4K on this build really are stunning, and the 5080 and 9800X 3D do a great job of providing top-end gaming performance. If you want to pick up any of the parts mentioned today, I'll link them for Amazon for latest pricing and availability in your region in the description below. Get subscribed to see more from me. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.